Los Angeles isn't exactly a friendly place for seniors. The traffic and parking can be very stressful. So when I found myself back in the city for a few days, I made time to go to my favorite destination, Huntington Gardens, which is actually in Pasadena. This video will give you an overview of Huntington, but at the end of the video, I will also share my thoughts on other LA destinations. Huntington Gardens is definitely my favorite place to visit in the city. There is plenty of free parking, which relieves the stress you often find at other sightseeing destinations. It is advised that you make a reservation, especially during high season. However, I didn't on my recent trip in February and was able to walk right in. Admission for a senior without a membership was $24. The property was originally purchased by Henry Huntington in 1907 and now covers over 207 acres. Your admission includes access to the botanical gardens, art museums, and the historical Huntington Library. You can definitely spend an entire day there. The gardens are divided into individual gardens, which I will walk you through. First is the Chinese Garden. This area is full of pagodas, ponds, bridges, and waterfalls, and a wandering path that is meticulously constructed of black and white polished stones. Throughout the garden are some stone sculptures. There is a central courtyard. Also, there is a bonsai garden that is quite impressive. Adjacent to the Chinese garden is the Japanese garden. It has a koi pond, an interesting bridge, and waterfalls. It seems a bit smaller than the Chinese garden, but maybe it just feels more intimate. I'll say here that there are so many little offshoot paths that it is easy to get turned around. Make sure when you visit you grab a map at the entrance in order to keep your bearings. However, there are periodic signs that tell you where you are. The Australian garden was next, and it is all about the trees. There are some spectacular specimens that seem to grow brilliantly in the California weather. Here's a Sydney blue gum tree that has almost a silver bark. Then there are the bottle trees that look like their name, very bulbous at the bottom. After the Australian gardens were the lily ponds. I wandered around looking for them and finally asked a staff person to point me in the right direction. I realized then why I hadn't found it, because the lilies weren't in bloom in February. I looked back at my photos from a previous visit and found these photos, which are quite stunning. So the gardens definitely vary depending on the season. However, the way the landscape is designed, it is beautiful every season, just different. The camellias were in bloom on this trip. Next was the desert garden that is so dense with cacti that it is a sight to behold. Unlike in a true desert where the plants are more spread out, these settings of cacti are almost lush. I love these barrel cacti that are so plump and perfectly round. And these are some of the largest agave I have ever seen. I've covered the main garden areas, but there are many more beautiful areas throughout the park. Here are a few images that highlight the beauty of the place, which is surrounded by mountains. There are just amazing perspectives everywhere you look, which attests to the brilliance of the original design and layout. The Huntingtons who purchased this land built a majestic house that overlooks the gardens. Their home now houses an impressive display of art and artifacts. The architecture is quite grand, and each room contains unique collections. Here are a few images from the main house. These tapestries were extraordinary. There are several buildings on the property that house various art collections, including some noteworthy American and European art. The Huntington Library has some fabulously old manuscripts and original documents, including the Gutenberg Bible, a draft of Henry David Thoreau's Walden, and some writings from Isaac Newton. I will say that there was a pro and con of going in the off-season of February. The park was not as crowded, however there were also several places closed or under repair. There was a science museum and children's garden, but both were closed on this day. I had been to the science museum on a previous visit and was fascinated by the evolution of the light bulb. Check out these beauties. There was also a popular tea service at the Rose Garden Tea Room. I didn't visit on this trip since I was on my own, but my daughter and I went a few years ago. It is a lovely spot to enjoy tea, mini sandwiches, and pastries. You will need to make a reservation in advance if you plan to go. On this visit, I had lunch at the 1919 Cafe. There are several stations for you to order food and check out cafeteria style. There are tables indoors, but there is also a nice patio that overlooks the grounds. The food was quite good and reasonably priced. On your way out, I would suggest a visit to their gift shop. Now, I'm not much of a shopper, but I always love wandering through this place. It has beautiful items that are more than just souvenirs. I especially love the Christmas ornaments that are very unique. I love to peek at the books and other novelties. Every time I visit Huntington, I see something that I hadn't seen before. The grounds are vast, and it is easy to miss something, which I'm sure I did on this trip too. My advice is to make a reservation and do a little research before you go. There is quite a bit of walking required to get around the grounds, but they do have a tram that can pick you up and drop you off at various spots. For seniors, there are some inclines and steps on some of the paths. Wear comfortable shoes and bring sunscreen and a hat, and give yourself plenty of time to have a leisurely trip through the gardens. So that is my favorite senior-friendly place to visit in Los Angeles. A few other places I'd like to recommend are the Griffith Observatory, which is the #1 tourist spot in the city. Admission is free, but parking is a challenge. I recently drove there on a Saturday morning and got there at 9 a.m. I was able to get parking by the observatory and take in the views, which are 360 degrees of spectacular. I'll cover my trip to Griffith Park in another video. Another wonderful place to go is the Getty Center. The $1.3 billion center is known for its architecture, museum, gardens, and views. It's another place you want to give yourself time to navigate. It requires a reservation, and you want to inquire about parking. Now, there are numerous beaches in LA. I would recommend Manhattan or Malibu Beach. Santa Monica Beach is just too difficult in terms of traffic and parking. If you want to go to some of the iconic places like Rodeo Drive or the Hollywood Walk of Fame, your biggest challenge is parking. Do a bit of research first to find out where there is public parking and arrive early. Also note that the streets of Hollywood can be a little sketchy at times, so I wouldn't recommend going at night. So those are my current Los Angeles recommendations. If you have other places you would recommend for senior and solo travelers, please share in the comment section below. And if you'd like to follow more of my senior and solo travel journeys, please subscribe. Cheers!